Look, let's move on because the Prime Minister has told a French national he is welcome to stay in Australia after he fought off the Bondi Westfield attacker with a bollard. Have a listen.
You are welcome here. You are welcome to stay for as long as you like. This is someone who we would welcome becoming an Australian citizen, although that would, of course, be a loss for France. We thank him for his extraordinary bravery.
Now, Stephen, that's exactly the sort of citizen that we want in Australia.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure that this is how we should be managing our immigration policy, but I'm all for it. If this guy wants to stay in Australia, he can stay here as long as he likes, and it seems to be bipartisan support for him staying, so good on him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the courage and bravery he showed was just incredible. Now, Susie, it was interesting because you wrote in your column today, gun nuts from the US are using the Bondi mass stabbing to argue Australians need more weapons, including concealed guns. Surely that's not the answer to this. Surely we live in a society where we don't need these stringent rules.
Well, you know, the legacy of John Howard are these gun laws. Can you even imagine what kind of carnage there would have been if this man who had a knife had one of the, a shotgun or a high-powered revolver? It would have been absolute carnage. So we would have been talking about hundreds of deaths. And then off the back of this, the death of 6 people, we've got some of these people from the far right wing in the US who were saying, oh, well, actually, wouldn't this have been better if we had a good man with a gun? Well, we actually had a good woman with a gun who put an end to it, and she was a police officer. That's all we need. We need the police to be armed. That's what we need. We don't need more random people carrying concealed weapons because what actually happens, and this is what happens in the States, these weapons, these concealed weapons that are in houses, that are carried by people in streets, are not used to stop random attacks by strangers. They're most often used on family members or by family members, and they're deadly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do have very strict gun laws as it is, and they've worked for so many years. I think you're absolutely spot on. Now, the boss of Operation Sovereign Borders is warning Labor's emergency migration laws could in fact backfire, possibly encouraging people to travel by boat to Australia. Look, I tell you what, Stephen, I feel like Labor's really got themselves into a mess over this. They tried to rush it through 36 hours, Claire O'Neill, Andrew Giles together, the dynamic duo, and it has backfired.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. We've got incompetent ministers running a really important portfolio suite. Well, we talk about home affairs and about immigration here. They're not up to the task, but we've also got a government that is ideologically not firm on this. Now, whilst they might be talking a big game at the moment, we know that historically Labor doesn't believe in strong border protection, and that message and that perception is what fuels the people smuggler business. So it's no surprise to me whatsoever that they're now using this for their own spin to try and get their business model up and running again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it was only just last weekend we saw another boat arrive, and there's been another, I think, 2 instances of boats arriving since the start of the year. Susie, what's your thought on this? It just feels like Labor's got themselves into a mess.
Well, you can debate the merits of that particular law, but in terms of the people smugglers, they don't care what the law is. They don't care whether it's Liberal or Labor or strong or weak. Anything the government does, they will use to peddle their human misery. They don't actually care about the fine details and who it's helping and who it's not. They just will exploit anything any government does on any side in order to get more people on those boats. And, you know, for them to suddenly say, oh, well, you won't be able to come lawfully, hundreds of thousands of migrants come here lawfully. So it's absolutely ridiculous. But they don't care what the law says. They will exploit any piece of legislation for their own ends.
Absolutely.
Well, they didn't for a decade, though.
They didn't for a decade. On. Yes, exactly, Steve. And that is the point, right? They didn't for a decade.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think you look at the people smugglers, you can't suddenly say that they were quiet for a decade. I mean, they were still doing whatever they could and saying whatever they could to get anyone on those boats. And we know that's the case.
Yeah, look, I mean, this loophole has been a bit of a drama. Susie O'Brien, Stephen Setetiempo. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.